Sustenance is about tiny personal incidents, life and death and smaller things like being able to take an exam, things like that. It's these tiny personal incidents that are headlines for 5 minutes and then they're gone and they're just footnotes. So the singing is the headlines rather than the actual because that's all we have to do. If you click all the links, you'll read all the footnotes and you'll know what all the story is about. The wonderful thing was that I hadn't originally intended to use the footnotes within the song, but I gathered that was brought in by Laura and Paul.
Finally, a quickening in the carriage, crushed. Pia steering, a small boy's body frozen on the boat. Amira at the station with a ticket and her textbooks. Inez embroiders Asamaka on the shoes she leaves behind. flowering cries before a camera for a prize. Johannes aged with the bruises of the blows of the hammer to his head. A multiplicity of contemporary voices, real and fictional, each at a liminal point between grief and hope, all united through a single phrase, Nkabu Oron. Translation: this is my house, and by extension here, the earth is home to us all. It is used here in a spirit of stoicism or welcome, radical activity that sustains hope, quickening, as if feeling the fetus move inside you. Captain Pierre Klemp, TEDx Berlin, 2019. HTTPS YouTube 7v1ZNNFCQ. HTTPS www.theguardian.com.uk news/2022/May/10/Home Office backs down on the travel costs for Eritrean refugees sitting GCSE. Question mark. CMP equals share iOS APP HTTPS //stories/center-support-women's-resilience-ICMOC https://www.thegguardian.com/world/2020/June/26/Indonesian-Indonesian/Villages-Devenish-Rolling This woman, nameless, grasps a knife, inscribes COVID-19-warnings-2-warnings-Rohingya-refugees-CMP equals share iOS AWP https://www.nytimes.com/2020-11-
I unfortunately lost somebody who's very close to me from a terminal illness, and when they died, or when they were diagnosed, we made a very snap decision to go travelling and had a fabulous month of travels where we went hiking in the woodlands, we swam in the sea, went on mountains, went in the forests, we saw whales and dolphins, and I was always very conscious that the map route was round, you were travelling and this journey started at point A, came back to point A in many ways. Starting at A actually. It also feels like quite a mindful process because for me going travelling made us aware of how special every single moment was. We didn't take a second for granted. Footstep, mile, every part of the journey. Just acutely aware of the significance of every little that we had. It was so quite social. And in a way I think that was a gift to me to say, remember that on the journey, that every moment is a gift to live it especially. And so travelling with music, it feels really nice to keep that kind of mind journey going and to keep remembering the music that brings moments that I've seen for the reason I so yeah, it was nice to music and thank God I actually did have a dream about Julie
I was working on an opera about Mary Anning when Laura came to me, and I'd done all this research about the fossils that Mary had been looking at, and one of the fossils were these creatures that had been living for 500 million years, and I was so, to me they were a symbol of hope and of life, and for writing about something that was hope and a thing with feathers, this creature just looks like a handful of feathers floating in the water. It's a sea creature, it's an animal, a bit like a starfish, and it just looks like feathers, and it floats, and it's this most incredibly elegant creature, and to me this was my inspiration anyway for
sun's thread, my way to reach Everest.
binds me and you hand in hand to fulfill the unreal dreams of Alice in Wonderland. You are the
Dear, oh dear. Sorry for that abrupt end. Hi, okay. Welcome back, everybody. Hello, Laura. Goodbye, Laura. We should have Gwen and Katie joining us. How fabulous. Great. That is such a beautiful little film. And watching it, it just struck me that anybody who's just turned up a bit at random, who's maybe devouring all our watch parties, might go, what on earth was going on there? So, Laura, I don't know if you could explain actually what we've just seen.
Okay, yeah, it's a walk from the Cockpit Theatre around North London, or a part near Regent's Park, and it was a sound walk that we made, but really a song cycle, starting with Hope, and I commissioned, well, very micro commissioned some writer friends to write responses to that.
There was a load of people fiddling with phones and some headphones on. How did that work? What was happening?
Yeah, well, it's kind of an R&D, because like we're using technology called Echoes XYZ, which is this app you download off a phone, and it's geolocated, and you have to use your phone signal to get it. So everyone's trying to work it out as we do it, and that's the kind of joy. Some people hate that, but I quite like it. It's like a map, an audio map of like a little place, and you have to sort of discover it yourself. So we did it as a group, but it's quite nice doing it on your own.
Yeah. So how it worked is you come out of the theatre, and when you go into a space that you've marked out on a map, then a particular song starts playing. And as you carry on walking, you step out of that song. I think we ended up putting them on repeat, didn't we? So you could have them again. And that took a while. And then you go into the next space and you go to the next one, and so on and so forth. There's a map to guide you. And so that's what was going on. And we've had a lot of different editions of that film, which are balancing out what's taking priority. Is it a film of the walk that happened on the first day of our festival, or is it a film of the music, which gives you the context of the walk, or maybe it's a film that gets everybody extremely confused while you're listening to some very beautiful music. I think our audience could tell us, do pop anything you'd like relayed to the panel into the chat, and I will do my best to pass on your questions to the right person. So just put question in big letters and I'll pass it on. We've got an insane amount of allotted time, so I don't think we should have an hour and 5 minutes of dissecting your piece, Laura. But starting with you, where did it come from? What was the germ of this? Way, like, aside from the maps and apps and.
Oh, what for me? Oh, just like after lockdown and that. The poem Hope is a good poem. I think I was trying to get inspiration for a funeral, and we didn't use it in the funeral, but it's just like a really lovely poem. I think a year on, it really spoke to me, and it was a process of putting something together that was a memorial, but at the same time quite hopeful. Does that make sense? Working with people that I find inspiring. Everyone I met on this project has either helped me they do know, through some tricky years. So it was nice to work with that kind of group of people that were really supportive.
So you began with this one poem, is that right?
Yeah. I mean,
Well, go on.
Well, I first met Ahed and I heard a piece that she'd written, which was about butterflies. And then that was the instigation to then find this piece that was about hope. So it was sort of like the culmination of projects coming to an end and then new projects starting.
So you gathered everybody around you after you met Ahed, or was this Emily Dickinson came first? Or
I don't really know. I don't think they sort of always sort of have a cohesive. I can't remember when I found Dickinson. But yeah.
Okay, how did you get it? What was your first contact with this project, and how did it flow for you?
Well, Laura and I had quite recently before that worked on a different project together. That was a piece called Detritus, which was commissioned by ROH and was performed as a site-specific piece at St. Pancras International on International Women's Day last year. And I really enjoyed the various challenges within that, particularly the community aspect of it. And I know that's something that Laura is much more an expert in than I am. And having enjoyed working together on that, Laura invited me to be part of this. Now, when she asked me to do it, that was early summer, I think. And I then went away for a couple of weeks to Aix-en-Provence, and I thought I'd written something there. And I had a couple of weeks or so to go before I needed to submit it to Laura. But then in the intervening time, after I came back, somebody I didn't know well, but who had become quite valuable to me and was potentially a very important collaborator, died very suddenly. And equally suddenly, I suddenly felt that I didn't want the sparkly sort of poetic thing that I'd originally thought I would offer. I was not in the right mood for that. I wanted something very stark, not people's actual voices, just a very stark narrative. This happened, that happened, the next happened. So that was the starting point for simply using I took the headlines and turned them into these sentences, which were sort of micro stories, just as our detritus piece had been a micro opera. Each of these 2-line pieces were micro stories, which people could, if they were interested, find out more about by clicking on the actual links to the headlines. The other thing I was interested in, once I started on that, as knowing that this was going to be listened to through headphones, I was also thinking about, because I'm more used to writing something for to be staged, I was thinking about how the thing could live in a different context. If it were being performed in front of people, what else would it need? And that was how I brought in Nkabo Orom as a recurring phrase, which it ties all of the different things to all of the different stories together, but it would also offer, whereas the narrative parts I wanted to be unemotional, the Nkabo Orom could then act as a more emotional thing if it was staged in a different way, and that itself brought a sort of poetry. So I think really that's what I wanted to achieve, something that was stark, but also that had some sort of grasping at poetry behind it.
It's so riveting, this, because you know, almost every work that we've hosted and all the watch parties we've had, people have been coming together and they're making a thing that happens at a particular time that has certain people there, and that is what it is. And it may have a little bit of background information or something, but here you're all describing, I mean, I don't think any of you knew what the thing would be that was on the 29th of August that we just watched, and nor do we even yet possibly understand the kind of tentacles it's got through different media. And like you say, we can still go back to the website and find the app and click on, you can do the journey today or tomorrow. You can click on your footnotes and you can read the words. There's something really quite magically extraordinary about the reach of this piece and the potential reach. Katie, tell us about how you first got roped involved, and where, I mean, you go in great detail about what you actually wrote and a bit where it came from, but how did you connect with Laura in the first place?
So Laura and I had been working on a project a few summers ago that was actually combining dance and music and poetry, and we'd been working in the studio with some fabulous dancers, improvising and creating what I don't know how to choreo poetry, I suppose, to music. And we'd also met at the Royal Opera House working on the Commission for International Women's Day, and I think we sort of bonded because actually looking back, I think we were probably both living the earlier stages of grief, and we probably both needed to talk about that and kind of were potentially experiencing some of the same things. And there was a real freedom in going, do you get me? And someone else going, oh my God, I totally get you. And so I think we had this kind of bond of like being able to say whatever we wanted to without anyone going, oh, that's a bit deep or strange. So we kind of just that, I feel like that's the friendship that we fell into quite quickly. And so we'd wanted to work together on projects afterwards. And when I wrote a series of poems when I came back from New Zealand after traveling, and this quite extraordinary experience of traveling with somebody who has a terminal diagnosis was very extraordinary, and probably one of the worst and one of the best and worst things I've ever done, because it completely changes your view of every single thing that you do, every mouthful of pureed strawberries and every cloud in the sky. You have such an acute awareness of every single second. It was kind of electric, but obviously there was a significant decline in health within that journey. And so for me, processing all of that was my natural thing was to write. So I had all of these poems which were about the travelling and around grief. And so Laura and I hung out by the seaside and kind of started to work together on putting this idea, bringing it to life. And they were certainly poems when I first wrote them, and they were structurally formulaic, like a poem on a page. But what I find really exciting about working with composers, and particularly in opera, is how you have to envisage how a singer is going to sing that. So you can't have loads of really hard consonants that are going to be really dead and difficult for somebody to bring to life vocally. You have to think about round vowel sounds and stretching out your words at the end of the sentences so that there's a real lift and an arc to the music of the words. So it was kind of a process of going back and switching some lines and making them stretchy and gooey for opera singers to want to be able to sing. And then I always find it absolutely electrifying listening to Laura's music, and having my words fit to that was just really beautiful for me. And like I say, for me, it was just really a privilege to have something like this that will keep the memory of a very special person alive for me. So again, thank you. Thank you to Laura.
Well, I think it speaks to us all, but yeah, you've segued us beautifully. I was going to ask Gwen a bigger question, but how did you get on with the words?
Just for the record, they don't all have to be gooey. Just for the record, just saying for a friend, just putting it out there. It's been a process, which has been really, really enjoyable, really, really collaborative, between actually the three of us, Allyson, myself, and Laura, because we would get together and she'd say, okay, so I've got this. And we'd go, you might want to add that. This would be useful, because we've done a lot of R&D, and I've done composition, and so's Allyson. So it ended up being a really collaborative process, and it just ended up being a really, really special thing, I think. She has a facility for writing really beautiful, touching music, and I think it's quite rare. So if she says, can you? I say, okay, when? It's quite simple.
Yeah, I mean, it really resonates with me what another of our artists was saying, Phoenix Rusiamanis, who wrote Songs of Descent, which was another musical highlight in the festival, but also absolutely pitch black roots it had of mental health crisis and trauma and God knows what. And in the Zoom we did trailing it, because we had so many queer shows, we did this thing called Queer Connections. Phoenix was talking about the decline and horror and all this ghastliness, and I was kind of slightly sitting there going, you are just stopping anybody buying a ticket to your show here. And then she said, but you have to find the beauty in that. And it was a kind of spine-tingling moment, because it's so beautiful what she wrote. And it feels like you've gone to the same place here, that you're addressing, one of the kind of darkest burdens we have to carry through our life is grief, isn't it? And to find the beauty in that is certainly something that you've all done together. It's also, I'll just go backwards slightly, Gwen, and just know a little bit about your first connection with Laura and the project.
It goes back further. It goes back to lockdown. I did a talk for the Engender Network, and I think a few weeks after that, I got a very interesting phone call, stroke message, stroke email, which I replied to, and it was Laura. And she just wanted to know if I would mentor her. So this was a while back. And she was doing a piece for you. And we went through the process of it, and I also coached Severine, who was singing it. And it ended up being, again, a really unusual and quite beautiful thing. And we've had a friendship stroke working relationship ever since. So essentially she picked me up. That's how it works.
Oh, that's absolutely lovely. And another question that is begged is, I mean, it's already got a future life, this work. It's already been built into it. But Laura, can you tell us more about where it might be heading and what it might become and where it can continue to exist? And
At the moment, it's going to a field, an old disused farm, which is a rewilding site in Dorset called Bear Regis Wild Woodbury. And I've literally been there today, and they're changing it to be a wildlife place where they're going to flood it, make sure that the local area where we live is always prone to flooding. So they're making it sustainable with wildlife, but it's derelict and it's really cool. I mean, it's really kind of really poignant and sad because it's got all this sort of death and decay, but then all the hope is the wildlife that comes through. And that resonates like personally for me with some of my family, but also like it's beautiful to be part of. And Inside Out's a lovely festival to be part of anyway, but they're sort of trialing it. So
yeah, it's very, very different. It sounds to the streets of Marylebone and Regent's Park. It's
yeah, and Ahed's going to be coming, and it'll be lovely to just see what people think in a different context.
yeah, that's really interesting. Well, in the absence of any questions from our audience, or I think you're expressing what's going on yourselves so well, is there anything any of you would like to add?
Just thank you.
Yeah.
Simple. To be able to participate in something like this, which I suppose here's the rub. As you said before, when you think of grief, you think of the 7 stages, you think of trauma, you think of to find beauty in that and to preserve the feeling of memories. It's a really special thing to be able to do. So thank you for letting me be a part of it and collaborating with you. Really, really did mean something. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everybody. I think that's
Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Bill, for having us because it was a risk. Thank you, everybody, for putting your heart into this. It's been beautiful working with you.
yeah, it's been a huge pleasure. Well, for our audience, it's still there. You can still find it on our website. Don't know how long it'll last, but highly recommend another walk around Marylebone, and hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.